many people in this room. We also have the other room full of people. And ladies, you can sit right over here. We have about 15 chairs. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the funeral service. We ask if you have a cell phone or pager, if you could turn it to the silent mode. Officiating is Rabbi Yeshua Eichenstein.
Ashrei ha'Ish, asher lo halach b'atzas v'sha'im, v'derech achat im lo amar, v'moshav leitzim lo yashav. Ki misaras alay chefzo, v'sarasoya gayamam v'layla. V'ya ke'et shasilo palge mayim. Asher priyo yitem bito, v'aleo lo yibol, v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach. L'chein harasha'im, kim kamot asher titfenu ruach. Al kein lo yakum risha'im b'misbad, v'chateim b'das tzadikim. Ki yodei Adonai derech tzadikim, v'derech risha'im toved.
Praiseworthy is the man that walked not in the counsel of the wicked and stood not in the path of sinful and sat not in the session of people who make jokes. In Shulchan Aruch it's brought down that a Yisru Chag, right after a Yontif Hespedim, eulogies should not be said. But divrei shvach may be said. I heard from my father-in-law, Zechain Livrocha, that for Mendel Zaks, the son-in-law of the Heilige Chofetz Chaim, unfortunately, he heard from him many times in such occasions that he said over in the name of the Chofetz Chaim, Hespedim should not be said, but divrei hisoros, words which could influence, which could be beneficial for the crowd, should be said. We're dealing now by a hesped. We've all come to pay our last respects to Dovi. Dovi had a helik in neshama. There's no question. There was something special about this neshama. If he would have been able to say Tfilas Zakai, which we all said before Kol Nidrei, which is asking Mechila, forgiveness from anybody who we had hurt during the year, I don't believe the halacha he'd have to. He was somebody loved by all of us. In our Beis Medrash, he was our right-hand man. He stood by the Sefer Torah. And we all remember in our Beis Medrash how by Hakofis, he would go around with the light Sefer Torah and would be happy, and he was loved by us all. But we must mention, what instilled in that Helik in the Neshama? Harav Matisyo Chaim Solomon, Zecher Tzadik Levrocha, he used to stand up for any child who had challenges in his life. He said they were born with a Helik in the Neshama, and we have to give them respect. And there's no question that this love and this Simchas HaChayim, which Dovi had, was given by his wonderful parents, Hashem Yinachem Osam, Rabbi Yomen, and Sora, and the siblings, Elisha, Jakey, and Shoshana, the grandparents, Rabbi and Mrs. Yisrael and Esther Porush, and the grandmother, the mother of Sarah, Mrs. Barg. What they instilled in him, this Helikite, this wonderful child who they gave so much and he meant so much to their lives. Binyamin, a few days ago, told me that he felt this was a brocha, the having Dovi in the family. There's no question, and the uncles, what they meant and what they also contributed. Tehei nishmaso tzura b'tzura chayim.
For the last 26 years, I thought that getting Dovi's diagnosis was the hardest moment I would ever deal with. But it was nothing compared to saying goodbye to our Dovi. Dovi didn't always have the easiest life, but you would never know it by talking to him. If you asked Dovi, he would tell you that he had the best life. Life didn't dictate Dovi's mood, only he did. And that was to be Tamid B'Simcha. Dovi loved life. He loved his life. And we were just fortunate to be part of it. Everyone loves you, Dovi. It is literally impossible not to. To meet Dovi means you have a friend for life. You even charmed the staff in Highland Park Hospital without ever even saying a word to them. And nobody was more thoughtful, always wanting to make sure that everyone else was happy, wanting to know everybody's Shabbos plans, how everyone's kids were doing. Who else but Dovi would think to go around shul to his friends and put their talus on their spot so when they came to shul, it was ready for them? Dovi, your life was full of so many people who love you. Camp Simcha Special, Bunk 17, if you know, you know, Kids of Courage, Lave, and Keshet. We cannot begin to imagine what the staff of Keshet has endured these last few weeks. But I want to publicly thank them for the bravery they showed that day, and we are forever grateful. Dovi, your mommy and I are so proud of you. You could say we grew up together. And as a big brother, you ruled the house with your love and care for your siblings. Their success was always your success. They are the amazing people they are today because of you. Like we always say, not everyone gets to have a Dovi. And Dovi, they love you more than you could ever know. Well, everyone has their Dovi story and special connection. We were Zocha to have the moments that only we got to see. Dovi, you were our mashgiach. You would make sure we were up for Shul and Shabbos in ways that only you could do it. Making sure we daven mincha already, wanting to know what time we were going to go daven Mariv. Dovi, your life was Yom Shekulo Shabbos. From the moment we finished Havdalah, which you set up every week, you were already talking about how you couldn't wait for the next Shabbos. You lived Me'en Om Haba, your Zmiros, and your Kiddush. As you would always say, Shabbos is the best day of the W-E-E-K. Even at the end, you waited for one more Shabbos. But not just any Shabbos. It was Shabbos Shabboson. And you go to Shemayim as pure as can be. With a full kapara, as you take your spot by the Kisei HaKavod. But we know that you waited for our benefit. The tefillos and tehillim that have been said over the last 3 weeks in your zchus came when Klal Yisrael needed them most. As always, you were only thinking about everyone else. So now, my sweet Dovi, what do we do? Here we are, just days before Sukkot. Zman Simchaseinu. And as always, even now, you are showing us the way. It's the only way you know. Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. It's how you lived every second of every day. And I think that Sukkot specifically can bring us all a lot of chizuk. And most notably, the Arba Minim. We all know that the lulav represents the spine, and the esrog represents the heart, the hadassim the eyes, and the aravos the lips. All parts of your body that were a challenge for you in this world, which are now perfected as you serve Hashem in Shamayim. You accomplished everything in this world, with maybe your biggest accomplishment coming just this past Erev Yantiv, when you became Uncle Dovi. Dovi, I ask you for mechila. If at any point I didn't treat you the way you deserved, please be a melis yosher for your family, who cannot imagine our lives without you. Last, I want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for trusting this precious holy neshama with us for 26 years with our Chaim Dov. Mila hamavas lenetzach, macha Hashem timal kol panim.
Dovi, I couldn't have asked for a better role model, an older brother to look up to for these past 22 years. I don't know what me, Jake, and Shauna did to be zeichet to have you as our older brother, or what Mami and Abba did, but it was the biggest bracha that we could have ever asked for. Dovi was always the happiest and the most loving and caring person that everyone knows. Every single room that Dovi would walk into, he would instantly light up that room. No matter what the situation was, he was always there to bring everyone up and bring a smile and would treat everyone the exact same way. Dovi connected people. He was a link that brought everyone together. Whether it was his family, his cousins, his aunts, his uncles, his friends from school, he was always bringing people together. There is only ever one situation I could ever remember Dovi ever being genuinely upset, and that's when his sports teams were losing. Dovi truly ran our lives, and for those who were lucky enough to daven in our shul, whether he was being Gabbai Shlishi, doing Ashram Yom Simchas Torah, or just doing his weekly walkarounds on Friday night or Shabbos morning, giving everyone a hug, asking how their week was, or finding out what their Shabbos plans were. He truly brought everyone in the shul together and made it not just the shul it is, but the family that it is today. Over the past handful of years while I was away in yeshiva, there's always one thing I could count on, and that was Dovi's Friday afternoon phone call. All he wanted was to see how I was doing, see what my plans were for Shabbos, and how my friends were doing. It was never a long phone call. It was sweet and straight to the point. Everybody knows that there's nothing quite like a Dovi hug. No matter if it was just because he was saying hello, or if he was comforting you for whatever it was, he was always just there to pick you up. So many times that we would be, whether it was in the streets in Gula or on Tui, so many times we would just be walking on the street, someone would say, Dovi, and then proceed to talk to them for a few minutes, and then we would walk away, Dovi, who was that? I don't know. She didn't know. It was someone that he knew, that he crossed paths with, and he made an impact on their lives, because that's what Dovi did. He impacted everybody's lives, and everybody that had the privilege and zchus to know him, he truly impacted their life for the better, and is a better person than they were before they met him. These past 22 years that I've had the privilege and zchus to call Dovi my brother, I wouldn't change a thing. Whether it was fighting over the TV remote, or walking to shul, or going to Cubs games, whatever it was, he always did it b'simcha. It could have been schlepping halfway across who knows where, but he always did it with a smile, and he always was there to just be there for everybody. He truly was the sweetest, the lovingest, the link that brought everyone together. And I'm gonna miss you dearly. I love you.
We said yesterday, and after the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol, after we go through the whole Seder Avodah, we said, Kol Ela Biya Yisahichal Amachenov, the Kohen Gadol Oimedu Misharis, and the Kohen Gadol would do he would do the Avodah. Everyone saw him. Everyone was so besimcha when they saw the Kohen Gadol after he did the Avodah. And he did it, and he came back, and they saw his panim, they saw his face. And we said, Ashrei ayin rasa kol ila. Halay mishma izen, davan ashinu. But now that we've heard that he's no longer doing the hafayda, halay mishma izen, davan ashinu. For the last 26 years, in our own mikdash, in our own bias, we had our own Kohen Gadol doing his avodah sakedesh, b'samcha, halayil mishmaris, davan hashinu. We see Ashrei ayin rasa. You would see him. You'd see he was so b'simcha, and everyone always thought that, I'm gonna go do chesed. I'm gonna go make Dovi happy. I'm gonna go give him a hug. I'm gonna go say hello to him. And then everybody realized that really Dovi was the one doing them the chesed. Dovi was the one making them b'simcha. Anybody who would see his face, they would see his panim yafis, the way he greeted every person. The simcha he had didn't matter if it was an old friend from school, if it was a family friend, somebody from shul, random person, like Alicia said, a person he didn't even know, a friend of mine. Everybody was the same. Dovi didn't discriminate. Everybody was, another person for Dovi to connect to, another person for Dovi to love and to connect with. And we've been saying it a lot the last couple weeks, but everybody, I think, can really say that they had their own personal, individual connection with Dovi in their own way, and that's what was so special about him, and that was so special about, the way that everybody relates to their experience with Dovi. And obviously there's a whole room of people here right now, and everyone who came to the Slavaya. But I don't feel like I'm speaking to a room of people, because I'm speaking to a room of individuals, of Yechidim, who all had their own special, unique connection with Dovi, because that's how he made it. He made everybody feel like, they were so special, even if you didn't know them. You were so special, and he gave you all the time, and he gave you his smile, and he gave you his laugh, because that's how Dovi connected, and he only cared about other people. Dovi taught us how to connect to people, how to love each other, how to laugh, how to smile, how to sing, even Shabbos mirs. Everyone, it's in Kol Mekadesh, Dovi had a special line, placed by Psia Kitana. Everybody would get quiet, and Dovi would shout out Psia Kitana with all of the biggest smile on his face. And, that was just, so special with Dovi. You mentioned Dovi's neshama is such a heilig neshama and so special. And even until his last breaths, or at the very end, even though everything else was gone, all of his other functions were gone, but Dovi's neshama was still there, and Dovi's neshama was still connecting. And I asked at the very beginning of 2 weeks ago, I was speaking to my Rabbi Shlomo Kutov from Yeshiva Minneapolis, and I asked him. I said, what's the pshat that everything that makes Dovi so special, his smile, his voice, his laugh, his everything about him, now, even when he was still here, but it was gone. I said, why does it have to end like that? Why does it have to end like this? Why does this have to be the way it ends? Like, where's Dovi? And he said to me something that I never really understood until recently. And he said that everything that makes Dovi special is still here. And really, we're realizing now is that what made Dovi special the whole time is what remained even after he could no longer breathe on his own, even after he was no longer conscious and there with us. But his neshama was there. His neshama was what connected. His neshama was what connected us. His neshama was what connected people to each other. We say every morning, Kol Zman Shem Neshama B'Kirbi U'Meida'ani Lefanecha Hashem Elokai V'Lekei Avosai Riven Kol Hamas Ma'adin Kol HaNeshamis. And nobody's life, nobody's interactions with people, with the way they carry themselves, screamed this more than Dovi and Dovi's neshama. And we see many examples of just the way that Dovi's neshama connected with things. Like my father mentioned, on Erev Shabbos, they'd be walking the shul, and Dovi would say, he would lean back in his wheelchair and say, give like a sigh, Shabbos, best day of the W-E-E-K. And we would ask, why is Shabbos the best day of the week? And Dovi would just say, because it is. And I was wondering, why would Dovi, what does that mean? It just is. And I think the answer is that there was no explanation needed. Dovi's neshama was just connecting to Shabbos, and that's all it was. And us, we have to connect to, in our Yiddishkeit, and the way that we connect to the Rebbeinu Shalom is through, we have to do ma'asim, and there's halachas, and there's dinim, and there's different ways that dictate how we connect to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And there's different ways that dictate how, now you have to do this, now you have to do that. But for Dovi didn't need that. And that was never what Dovi had to be doing. Right? It wasn't that Dovi was lacking in Dovi was lacking in his abilities to connect to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's the complete opposite. Dovi had his neshama went straight up and direct and was connecting directly to Shabbos. And his neshama was connecting directly to the Yom Tovim and to these things. And we see on Simchas Torah, Dovi it was literally a Sefer Torah holding a Sefer Torah on Simchas Torah, and you see the smile on his face. Last night, as I had been by the hospital in Highland Park, I was with Uncle David, and we drove to Evanston Hospital to drop off stuff for the baby, and we were driving back from the hospital. It was probably around 10:45, and I'm sure people heard it, but there was a tremendously loud thunder last night, totally a very, very unique sounding thunder. It rumbled for a long time, and then there was a blinding flash of lightning, and we were in the car, and we both were we jumped, and we were blinded by the lightning for a second. We almost couldn't see anything, and that was at 10:45. And when I was speaking to afterwards, my parents, Dovi was nifter at 10:45 last night, and I'm not here to say this is what it was, that what it was, but say there's a Gemara in May Katan, Gemara in Chafei and Beis in May Katan, says that when there was an Amira, I don't know which Amira I didn't see the Gemara inside, but there was an Amira was nifter, and a Kadosh Baruch Hu brought a ruach sa'ara, some sort of wind that came and and blew on that day when he was nifter. And the Maharsha explains over there in my kata, the Maharsha explains what's the pshat in that. He says that when a tzaddik is nifter, or on the yom ha-ptira of a tzaddik, or of a kadesh, of a neshama tahira, there could be a shinui in the teva that comes to express or to point out that this neshama tahira is exiting this world and going up to the Eilam Emes. And I'm not here to say that this is what it was, that's what it was, but just it's very it would be understandable if that was the pshat in what happened last night, because it wasn't even raining. It wasn't raining, and there was still such an event. But we know how Hilik Dovi's neshama was. We know how Yashris Dovi was. We say Arzura la tzadik u'lishri lev simcha. We said it by Kol Nidre. We said that. And we said Dovi was a Yashar Lev. Dovi. It wasn't anything complicated, like we said before. It was nothing complicated. Dovi's Yashras. Dovi was simple, the way he connected and the way he viewed people and the way he understood life. It was just Yishra Lev Simcha. Dovi, that's all he was. Yishra Lev Simcha. And he was a tzaddik, and like we said before, we said Halei Lemishma Yizan. We know Dovi's no longer with us. The way we, like Alicia said, I don't know why me, Alicia, and Shana, we were zeichet to have an up close experience, growing up with Dovi, and we never, we always celebrated Dovi in our house, and we never hid from Dovi, and Dovi was at the forefront of our lives. But we never felt like we were lacking, even though there was appointments and different things. We never felt like we were lacking. Dovi was at the forefront of our lives, but that was what was so special about it. And on many different occasions, we used to have in Minneapolis, when I was in yeshiva, there was a parent Shabbos where all the parents would come, and the siblings never came. But yeshiva, Dovi came for the first year. We weren't sure how was yeshiva gonna, obviously, if you don't know Dovi, it could be a little scary, intimidating people who aren't used to such special people like Dovi. And I remember he came and we were very nervous about what's going to happen. How's everyone going to deal with him? And from the start, Dovi was mamish, like he became like the mascot of yeshiva. And to this day, Dovi had a running phone call with the Manal Rekudov. Every Friday, Dovi would call him. They would speak before Shabbos. Once he had his phone call with Dovi, then he could go get ready for Shabbos. But he couldn't get ready for Shabbos until he spoke to Dovi before Shabbos. And just seeing how his relationships with my friends and my Rebbe, and how everybody just appreciated Dovi. And Dovi would come and play hockey with us, and he was on and Dovi scored a goal. And it's just how people just when they were with him, they just didn't matter that this was the hockey game for everyone in yeshiva, and we were playing in front of all the parents. We ended the game with Dovi on the ice in his sled, and Dovi scored a goal, and he went for a victory lap. Just people, the way that they embraced Dovi, and the way that they thought they were making him feel so special. But then they ultimately realized that really he was the one making them feel so special. And every time I would leave for yeshiva, Minneapolis also, but especially the last 4+ years, going back and forth from Tarat Stroll, Dovi would always spend the week before that I was leaving for yeshiva. When are you leaving, bro? When are you leaving? What time is your flight? How are you getting to the airport? I said, Dovi, I don't know how I'm getting to the airport, but when I know how I'm getting to the airport, you'll know, I promise. And he would always, the week before, he would pull me over and say, bro, please do not go. Please stay here with me. And I would say, Dovi, I have to go back to Shiva. And he would say, I know, but I want you to stay. And then this last time, after the summer being as madam, I was getting into the car and I realized that I had forgotten to say goodbye to Dovi. And I ran back inside, and Dovi was standing by the door, and he says to me, he says, "Bro, do not go." And I said, "But Dovi, I have to go. I have a flight in 3 hours." And he says, "Okay, but how many weeks? How many weeks till you're coming home?" And I said, 5 weeks, Dovi, not so long. And he said, "Okay, I will see you later." And then it was less than 5 weeks, but, it's Dovi, and, just... I don't know what our zchus was to get to have Dovi as a brother, but we learned so many special things from Dovi. How to love each other, and how to love other people. And we love Dovi, and so much for us to take with us. Say the Neshama, and love him so much. Dovi always had so much simcha. I wasn't sure if I was going to say this, but Dovi, at Alicia and Shana's weddings, Dovi got to walk. They had this chus to have Dovi walk down the aisle, and that was something that, made me so happy. He took his practice runs before the wedding. There's videos of him walking down the aisle. He's like teetering over, and it was such a special zchus for them to have him walk down the aisle. And even though I'm not gonna have that zchus to have him walk down in person, but of course Dovi will be walking down with me whenever that will be. And always gonna have that together with us. And yeah.
The Ramchal states in the Hakdama to Mesilas Yesharim that it, the Sefer, is written not for what you do not know, but for what you do know. The most obvious midos that we naturally know and should act upon. For that reason, Dovi Porush, Chaim Dov ben Binyamin Zev, Asar Yehudis, was a living Mesilas Yesharim. By his day-to-day behavior and character, Dovi taught us how to be better people. Whether it was his simple joy in seeing someone, whether it was his best friend, or even someone he had met only once, he greeted them all the same with love and a smile. This is something we all know, but often forget. Dovi never forgot. We often miss the joy in the simple things in life. Dovi would delight in just being at home, going to school, watching sports, the Cubs, the Blackhawks. Dovi's life was made up of so many of these events daily, and he appreciated each and every one of them. We should take the time to have that appreciation as well, which we often ignore, but know that we should appreciate. We often look at Yom Tov as a tough time, with task after task to do. Dovi viewed Yom Tovim differently. There was never a Yom Tov that was not fun, whether it was friends, family or shul, counselors visiting, minhagim or davening. There was always something to look forward to. More mashed potatoes and squash kugel. We should keep that in mind next time we complain about another errand to run, and be as excited for Yom Tov or Shabbos as Dovi was. And remember the excitement for these times that we all know we should have. Dovi loved his parents, Sarah and Benji. Dovi loved his siblings, Jakey, Shauna, Tzvi, and the new niece, little Hyman. Alicia and Yehudis. Dovi loved his grandparents, Babi and Saba, Savta, his cousins, his uncles. This love amongst parents, siblings, and grandparents and extended relatives is something that we can all emulate, even when times are hard, even when we know that it is the right thing to do, but we are challenged. Dovi set this example for all of us, unconditionally. The Gemara in Kiddush in Daf Lamed Aleph states that Rabbi Yochanan never knew his parents, and he said he was fortunate for that, as he did not have to deal with the pain of loss. As we sit here today, despite this pain, I think I speak for everyone when I say we are all so fortunate to have known Dovi, a walking Mesilas Yesharim. V'lamaras l'netzach u'macha Elokim Dima me'al kol panim te'nishmaso tzurura b'tzorah chayim.
Just one more thing I need to add that I forgot to say before. It goes without saying, the love that a parent has for a child. And what I think me and my siblings witnessed these last 3 weeks, and anybody else who was around for the last, couple of weeks as well, obviously they know, the love and the care that our parents have for us and for Dovi. And the last 3 weeks, they were always by his side, never moving from his side, and always being there for him, taking care of him, making sure he was cared for properly, making sure he was comfortable, making sure he had what he needed, making sure that he had the music that he liked playing, making sure that everything was good and everything was in order. And this is really, this is what we experienced in a vacuum the last 3 weeks, but didn't start there. And it was really just to use a big word, it was a microcosm of the last 26 years of love and care, 24/7, during the day, at night, wherever he was, wherever Dovi was, making sure he was comfortable, making sure he was safe, making sure he had what he needed. And it's definitely a lesson for me and my siblings, and how to love a child, how to care for a child, how to care for each other, how to care for other people. And it's just a tremendous, hakara satayv to my parents, and for all the love they show and continue to show to us, and for all the love that they have showed and will continue to show to Dovi.
To echo what everyone has said, whenever anyone would hear that I have Chicago connections, literally the very first question was, do you know Dovi Porush? Every single time. And whether it was knowing him from camp, from a Chai Lifeline, from KOC, from any of the other organizations, and just stomp people who have no connection to anything, and all of a sudden like, oh, you're Dovi Porush's uncle, you're so lucky. Like, what would you? I just met you. We're in the middle of the mall or something. Dovi was always moving forward. A couple of memories of Dovi moving forward. When he first started walking, I remember the absolute terror that my sister and brother-in-law had, because Dovi would, he was kind of like counterbalanced by his huge head. So like when he would get up and he would start going forward, you know when you walk, you're actually falling forward? Dovi literally was falling forward at warp speed, and so like, stop, Dovi, 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 Dovi. But he was moving forward. When Chai Lifeline started doing the Miami Marathon, so of course the Porushes and the Sheffys and everyone else got into the act, and without any doubt, the highlight of the marathon for me personally was crossing over the finish line, holding Dovi, with my sister running alongside, wearing her Running for Dovi t-shirt. Going back in time, by my chasna, Dovi was in an eating program at Hopkins in Baltimore, and Benji and Dovi were able to drive up, always moving, Dovi, always moving. And I remember Benji saying in the chasna video, I don't know where I am right now, whether I'm in Baltimore, I'm in New Jersey, where am I? Actually, you were in New York, technically. So to clear that up after 20-odd years, more than 20 years. A more recent memory of Dovi moving forward is when we had Seder together, and Dovi was really into cars. So we would go, Orchatz has been brought to you by, Dovi would name some brand of cars, BMW, very good, all right. Shulchan Aruch has been brought to you by Chevrolet. So Dovi would tell us what kind of cars. He was always looking weiter, always looking weiter. Dovi connected to everybody in unique ways with each person. I am no different. I was Zoiche that Dovi found out, somehow he found out that I had done martial arts. So for the next probably, 10 years, every time Dovi and I was teaching, you'd go, Uncle Aaron, hi-ya! Without fail, and I'm sure I am not special in that sense. Dovi connected with every single person just to, again, it's like a broken record. The Simchas Chaim Dovi felt was infectious to those around him. I know that I speak for my wife when it was incredibly special when he had the schus to host him many, many times. We actually have a photograph of Dovi and Sarah on our couch that we actually just recently saw, and they were both completely conked out because there must have been something that they came in for, some kind of whatever it was, and just having him there, just whatever we can do, and the schar that we got from his love and his smile was kiflayim. There was no way that we could give more to him. He was always giving more to everyone else. I wish I could say more. I know that everyone is saying very similar things. I just want to say, Dovi, your Uncle Aaron loves you. I wish you. I know that you're going to be a Melis Yosher. I know that you're looking down on us. You're annoyed with us. They're making such a big fuss about you. But you deserve it. Bilamovis la neitzach u'chakdima me'al kol panim.
When I was faced with the challenge of trying to find appropriate words to say, it was hard to look at the paper because of the tears. And I kind of hoped that the tears would just fall into the pages and I'd see the words that I needed. We know the power of tears. We just said yesterday, just a few short hours ago in Ne'ilah, he said, Shari Demois, Kiloni Shlavos. the gates of tears never closed. Then I realized why my tears wouldn't work. Because if you know something about FD, I waited on this, I don't know what number of person I'm speaking, the first student to use those letters. People with FD don't really produce tears. It's because someone like Dovi didn't need tears to open the Sha'ar Shemayim. The Sha'ar Shemayim were always open. Jakey kind of, to excuse the pun, stole my thunder. When we were driving yesterday and we saw this blinding flash of lightning and this deafening sound of thunder, and we found out later that was the exact moment. He said, this wasn't just a message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This wasn't sorrow, like when it rains, we think it's tears. This was applause. This was the Kolis Brakim that were at Matan Torah. We're coming back to take someone, a neshama, that hasn't changed since it was at Har Sinai. And they were cheering in Shemayim and want us to hear it. Who here thinks that Dovi was their best friend? I see hands. I was hoping some people do that. Everybody here felt that Dovi was their best friend. That's an unbelievable thing, because you're all wrong, because he was my best friend. Whenever Dovi would see me, sometimes he could sense that I was having a difficult day or difficult time. He was always in the office. So Dovi would hear me on the phone and whatever he would see, and he'd come over, just put his arm around me, say, don't worry, Uncle David. Hashem loves you. He had a unique way of sensing in anybody any trouble they had. At Gavi's Ufruf, my dear son-in-law Donnie, say he wasn't feeling well. Vamevin Yavin. For 3 hours in the afternoon, Dovi sat on the couch by Donnie and just held his hand. He said, Dovi, we're doing it. He goes, Donnie needs me. Sorry, not Donnie Garden. I see you looking at me. At Gavi's chasana, Gavi needed a little time to himself before the chuppah. He went off, and we all said, let's give Gavi a few minutes. Uh-oh. Dovi started walking over to Gavi. What do we do? We'll just let this play out. Beautiful picture. Dovi just put his arm around Gavi. Just stood there with him at that special time. And I know it gave Gavi the chizuk he needed. Because we've said from day one, nafshoy, kshura b'nafshoy. We like to have a lot of fun with Dovi. Nobody more than Rachi. If she knew that there was something that Dovi liked, and hopefully it would be something that Benji and Sarah really didn't want in their house. Whether it was a package of 1,000 corks or a 3 times life-size poster of Patrick Kane, Auntie Rachi made sure that Dovi had it. We know how much Dovi loved being an Oived Hashem. We've all said the word multiple times, Ivdu es Hashem besimcha. always optimistic, always happy with how Hashem made him. But it wasn't enough. Dovi wanted to be nene from everything that we all got to be nene in. To sit with Dovi at a Shabbos table, a Yontif table. When I set the table, what was the most important thing that I had to put on the table? It was a Kiddush cup for Dovi. Now, everyone knows Dovi couldn't drink. But that didn't stop Dovi from wanting to have his own Kiddush cup. Not because he was pretending. He didn't pretend. While we were enjoying the Gashmias, he was enjoying the Ruchnias of everything that we were nanan. He was nanan. He said he was always optimistic. He was always happy. Just to illustrate, I was in the office one day, and I walked by his office. Dovi had his own office. He was in charge of shredding. And Dovi was shrieking, jumping up and down. And I heard sports announcers. Now, I knew that none of our teams were playing. I thought maybe it was a preseason baseball game. Dovi would be just as excited about that. I said, Dovi, what's happening? Why are you so excited? And he showed me. He was watching a game from 6 years ago that he's watched many times because Dovi just wanted to be happy all the time. And that's the way he approached life. You know, Dovi was obviously belongs to Benji and Sarah, who not only took care of him in a way that we are all mekana, we're all amazed by the dedication. But look at Alicia and Yehudis. Look at Shana and Svi and our little Maidala. Look at Jakey, or Jakey. To see what they've become. Benji and Sarah gave everything and will always give everything to Dovi, to all the children, in equal measure, each what they all needed, making decisions that I could never have made, and they made, and their children are better for it. They are shining examples of what it means to truly give everything to your children. Bubby and Saba. Dovi was as much a part of your daily life as anybody else. And you had the hard jobs. You had to send him home at the end of the day. You had to just do your avodah. And avodah b'simcha. You lived for him. He lived for you. Nothing made him happier than to spend time with you. And while I know there's an emptiness that you all feel, I know that your lives are fuller because of him. We know how much more you have to give. And Hashem should bless you. And may have Esrim of Shalom and Shalva and Bracha. And we're all here, and your grandchildren, all the grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren are here to continue to receive that love. because we know how much you have to give. In our community, a community that learned so much from Dovi, that really made Dovi not a person with special needs, but a person who is truly special. A person who made us all feel special, made our kihila, our special shul, feel so special. Everyone who came in contact with him feels special. And I think there's a very special lesson from that as well. I was driving with my Rav from Eichenstein to the hospital. I remembered a story that I'd heard. I didn't know where I'd heard it. Turned out I'd heard it from him. The story goes, Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik from Boston was talking with somebody and learning. I think the way the story is, the Rav will forgive me if I'm misquoting the story a little bit. Someone said, let's talk about when the Vilna Gaon was nifter. The Rav says, the Gaon was nifter? Nobody told me. I was learning with him today. Right? The Rambam wasn't nifter. We're learning the Yad Chazaka today. We know that when Gedolim, when they go to the Olam HaEmes, they take their place by the Kisei HaKavod. We say they didn't die. They're not gone. Their Torah is with us. How can you say the Chavetz Chaim is gone when we're learning Mishnah Berurah every day and he's teaching us how we're supposed to live our lives? The Chavetz Chaim is not gone. When we need Pshat, we need to Tif in Gemara. We say Reb Chaim Brisker. We need to say a Stipler. They're not gone because they make each one of us better people, better Yidden, improve our lives. Kal v'chaymer Chaim Dov. Chaim Dov did not say a word of Lashon Hara in his 26 Yud Kei Vav Kei years of Tahara. Chaim Dov had no feelings of Sinas Chinam. He never said a word to anybody to make them feel bad. He only made them feel good. And how many people on all levels, from the Gedolim of our city to the youngest children in our shul, saw this every day, every Shabbos, constantly. If we follow the Mishnah Berurah, we'll know how to keep Hilchos Shabbos, Hilchos Tefillah. These are important. But if everybody in this room and everybody who came in contact with Dovi, which is in the thousands, takes the Torah of Dovi, Dovi's Shulchan Aruch, is in each and every one of us. And if we follow it, there's no doubt Mashiach will be here. Dovi will be back with us. That's our job. We have Dovi Shulchan Aruch. Learn it. Remember it. Dovi's with us. We'll be better. The world will be better. And we'll be Zoicha to the Bias Goel Tzedek. Bina Beis HaMikdash. B'meir b'yameinu. B'ilhat Maves L'netzach. V'ach Hashem Dimam Yalkol Panim.
I'm Rafi. I've had the privilege of being Dovi's counselor, friend, David, some would say best friend, and brother over the last 18 years. Please entertain my ramblings for just a couple of minutes. I'll be brief. Dovi Porush. I don't know where to begin. So, Dovi was unique. When Sarah spoke at my Sheva Brachas, she called me an acquired taste. It's an appropriate description. That wasn't, I have no fault there. Dovi was the opposite. There was nothing acquired about it. Everyone loved Dovi the moment they met him. He had tremendous medical challenges. It was a big part of his life, but it did not define Dovi. He was more than familial dysautonomia. He lived a truly joyful life, surrounded by loving and caring family, an incredibly supportive community, and a massive circle of friends. It was always inspiring to see the joy and happiness that Dovi displayed, despite dealing with immense daily challenges. Dovi had, I know it's repetitive, we've all said it, Dovi had such joy, a true simchas hachaim. It didn't take much to get a smile out of Dovi. There was truly a massive array, a massive spectrum of things that made Dovi happy. I'm just going to hit a few of the key points. It's a non-exhaustive, but an eclectic list. Connect 4, War, the card game, just to clarify. Cups, french fries, going to shul, sports. That can be everything from a preseason Blackhawks game to a Cubs game from 15 years ago. Being the gabbai in shul, talking to people, coffee stirrers, cups, stacking cups, schmoozing on the phone, camp, trips, doesn't matter where, trips. Blues Clues, num-nums, notebooks. And ultimately, what gave him the most joy was friends and family. Benji, Sarah, Shauna, Jakey, Alicia. I have never met a more dedicated set of parents and siblings. Nothing that needed to be done for Dovi, and there was plenty to be done, was ever a problem. The sheer dedication that you guys have shown is incredibly inspiring. Throughout Dovi's lives, at different points, you were his parents, his siblings, his teachers, his nurses, his doctors, his caregivers, his lawyers, and his confidants. Over the last few weeks, you guys elevated those roles. You never left his side. Spending weeks in the hospital is truly inspirational. The bond you guys all had with Dovi was incredible, and you should be immensely proud of the care that you've shown him, especially the last 3 weeks. Dovi, I know if you would hear, you'd tell me to stop it now, but I'm not going to. I'd like to ask Mechila for myself and for the broader Chai Lifeline and Kids of Courage family. I'm asking Mechila for anything I should have done but didn't, or anything I didn't do quickly enough or did not do correctly. Dovi, I hope you are Mokal all of us. It was an honor to be your friend and your family. I love you always.
I'm one of thousands of people that could have been a Shliach Tzibor for the few short words that I'm going to share. I've been asked to be a Shliach Tzibor many times. Shachris, Musaf, Ne'ilah, and Yom Kippur doesn't compare to the task of trying to represent a tzibur that has so much to say. And maybe even more that we all just don't know how to say. As the Rav mentioned, we're tasked with the challenge of only saying Divrei Yisraelus. We're going to try to stick to that, following the lead that Benji and Sarah have done for 26 years with difficult shilas. An incredible amount of diktuk and halacha to follow exactly what the Eibishter wanted from them on the highest level. And we'll try to follow suit. What could we walk away with? To be nisayrer from this neshama tahira. In the 1970s, Rabbi Yosef Bear was sick. He had multiple surgeries and he was away from shul in Boston for many, many weeks. And when he came back that Friday night, everybody lined up to say Shalom Aleichem to the Rav, welcome back to shul. Each person said, how's the Rav feeling? He said, I'm fine, thank you. There was one girl there who also had a special neshama with her own set of circumstances, but a neshama tahira as well. And when she passed by her Soloveitchik, Zatzal, she said to him, how's the Rav feeling? He spent about 6-7 minutes talking to her, explaining what still bothers him, what medication he has to take, what his rehab is like. Somebody who saw this happen asked the Rav afterwards. 50, 60 people asked you how you're feeling. You said, I'm fine. This girl asked you and you carried on for 6-7 minutes. What's the pshat? And he said, she's the only one who cared. She meant it not just as words. But her leiv, her neshama, was talking to my leiv, was talking to my neshama, and so I responded. That's limud number one. We have to start caring about what we're saying. Allow our leiv, allow our neshama to connect with other people's hearts, to see beyond the physical baggage that people may carry with them. One yid talking to another yid, one neshama talking to another neshama. And I think that's what we all have been zeicha to be recipients of. A leiv that meant it, a neshama that meant it, with emes, with no ulterior motives, a purity of caring. Every one of us could be mechazik in that inyan. And it will be a continuation of that emes tikalev, that neshama tahira that Dovi had. Reb Elul Apiyan points out an incredible limud. We say in davening every day, Berchas Kriya Shema, Kadosh Baruch Hu is a payil gevurais. He's oisech hadashos, he's baal mulchamos, matzmiach Yeshua, he's bayir refuos. They're all things we understand. The greatness of everything that happens in this world is Hashem. The renewal of everything in this world is Hashem. Any milchama that we fight, Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Yeshuas, the refuas that we all need from Hashem. Reb Elul Apiyan asks, what does it mean when we say Zareyat Tzedakos? Kadosh Baruch Hu plants our righteous acts. What does that mean? Says there's a Medrash, Gemara, that Pinchas ben Yair once found a bag of barley. He didn't know who the owner was, so he prepared a field. The owner hadn't come to claim it. He prepared a field and cultivated it and planted it. And for 7 years, he harvested and planted and stored all the growth that came from this one bag. And when the person came to ask back for his bag of barley, Pinchas ben Yair opened up and showed him warehouses of grain. If I may say, bigger than the fields of dreams, of produce. Says Rebbe Lepian, that's what it means, Zayrei Tzedakos. Do we understand the greatness of bringing a smile to somebody's face? Who guards that? Who's the shomer? Who's the guardian on that great act of bringing simcha to somebody else? Who guards that till the person's ready to receive that schar? Says Rebbe Lepian, HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds on to it. And he doesn't just hold on to it, he's Zayreya Tzedakos. We have no idea what's waiting for Dovi. We can't imagine the world that waits for Dovi because he was machshiv in a real way. He appreciated in a real way maybe things that we look past, maybe things that we are not machshiv as much. And aliyah for his neshama would certainly be for us to understand the greatness of bringing joy to somebody else, the greatness of taking a person, completely changing his mood because you could bring a smile to their face. If we could understand and really, really live with that greatness, we will also be relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a Zerei Tzedakos. And we'll be able to be collectively in aliyah for this great neshama tahira, who has worlds and worlds and worlds of schar and greatness waiting for him. None of us can understand the Darchei Hashem. We can't understand this Nisayan. And I stand as a member of the Tzibur who were Zaycha to interact with the Porush family, with Benji and Sarah, Shana, Alicia, Jakey, Tzvi, and Yehudis. If you had to have this Nisayan, Dovi, there isn't a greater mishpacha that your neshama could have been with to partner with the Eibishter in this Nisayan. Dovi, you always looked put together, well kept, taken care of. Your mishpacha was always besimcha. Whenever we saw them involved in taking care of you, you were never left out of anything. You were an integral part of the very fabric of the Porush mishpacha. If there had to be a mishpacha where your neshama had to be in this world, you'll leave us knowing you had the greatest mishpacha to be part of. Gedolim, and accepting what Hashem gives, accepting the sinus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives, and doing it in such an incredibly, incredibly high level. I'd like to end with a bracha. As was mentioned, you were Zaycha, Benji and Sarah, Shana and Tzvi, to continue the nitzchias of this incredible, incredible mishpacha that you are. Kodesh Baruch Hu should continue. This is all of our tefillas. And we won't stop davening for you. We won't stop being there for you. And I have no doubt that I'm speaking for every person in this room and anybody else who's listening or interacts with the Porush mishpacha. We're going to daven for you. That Kodesh Baruch Hu should continue to give you the koyach, to be able to go michayil al chayil, to be mekadesh shem shemayim in every moment that you are in this world doing the great avodah that you have done until now. Kodesh Baruch Hu should give all of you the kaiches to continue with simchas be'ezus Hashem. Should continue to lead us abi askel tzedek b'meir v'yameinu amen. Please rise.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Ramramim, Hamatzei Minachon Nechona, Tachas Kanfei HaShechina, B'malos Kedoshim U'Tahorim, Kizor HaRakia Masirim, Es Nishmas Chaim Dov B'Minyamin Zeh Shahalach Li'olamo, Bavor Shana Mizbalim Yaras Karas Ishmaso Beganei Den Tehei Menuchaso Chaim HaRachamim Yastiveu B'Seisek Nafav Yolamim Bitzor HaChaim Es Nishmaso Adonai hu nachlaso v'yanuach b'shalom amishkava v'lomar amen.
This concludes the Levaya here at the chapel. The crew will be, for now, at Ridgelawn Cemetery. It's on Peterson and Pulaski. For those who will be driving with the family in procession, we'll be lining up in the front. The family will be sitting Shiva at the Porush residence, 2950 West Jarlath, where they'll have Shachris every morning at 7:30 and Mincha at 5:50. If we can have all of Dovi's uncles and cousins come forward to act as pallbearers. And we asked everybody, once we have left the chapel, to please immediately go to your vehicles so we can get to the cemetery in a timely manner.